Hi, I'm Dr. Wordperson, and today we're going to talk about why Julius Caesar, the quintessential Roman, spoke his dying words not in Latin, but in ancient Greek. Basically, it all comes down to societal views of language. Latin actually kind of struggled to be taken seriously as a prestige language, at least compared to Greek. You know how today different people can have different opinions of the same language? Why? Latin makes you smart. You will ace the SATs, get into Harvard, breeze through law school, and land a job in the fast-paced, high-paying field of rocket surgery. Or Latin makes you a pompous ass, condemned to a life of tweed jackets and snobbery. Uh-oh. Get it off! Get off! Woo! Anyway, the Romans first made contact with the Greeks from Greek trading colonies in Sicily in the 8th century BCE, but Greek fever really started taking off once the Romans became involved in the Mediterranean world at large. Greek, you see, had some major selling points. 1. It was the language of culture and sophistication. Meinen aedethea, Herodotu Helicarnasseos historias apodexis hed Paiodenin dis. What great stuff! 2. The Greeks knew rhetoric, which is super helpful when basically everyone in your society is running for office constantly. 3. The Greeks knew how to have fun. You know who was having dinner parties where you hire a bunch of fancy prostitutes and then everyone gets drunk and talks about philosophy and you throw wine at each other and the whole thing turns into a giant orgy? That's right, the Greeks. The Latin verb pergraecari, literally Greek it up, means party! Man, why isn't anyone advertising their language classes like this these days? Anyway, by the later days of the Roman Republic and for centuries thereafter, every educated Roman was also bilingual in Greek. Cicero code switched between Latin and Greek in his letters, Catullus translated a Greek poem into Latin to woo his lover Lesbia, and Julius Caesar's dying words were not et tu Brute in Latin, but kai su teknon in Greek. Translation, even you, kiddo? I mean, if he said anything at all. Other sources report that he didn't actually say anything, he just pulled his toga up over his head. But yeah, William Shakespeare definitely got it wrong. You can't trust popular entertainment for historical accuracy? Who knew? Of course, to some people, the success of Greek felt like a threat to Latin. The Emperor Tiberius, and to a lesser extent his successor Claudius, both from the 1st century CE, even took steps to limit the use of Greek in public life. But in many ways, Latin was still very successful. As Rome conquered more and more territory, up the Italian peninsula and into France and Spain, its language did not follow far behind. The residents of these areas were largely Celts, speakers of languages like Gaulish and Celtiberian. But it was Latin that became the language of choice for the upwardly mobile Celt in the Roman Empire, since the Romans were the bringers of civilization, culture, and new business opportunities. Within a few generations, the Celts had almost entirely shifted to Latin. And Latin was very tenacious, even as the centuries marched on and the spoken vernacular became increasingly different from the written form of classical Latin. In France, for instance, it took until the 16th century for poets to stop writing in Latin and start writing in French. This group of poets was called La Pléiade, and one of its members actually did lapse back into writing in Latin. This guy, Du Bellay, wrote, Gallica musa mihi est, fateor, quod nupta marito, pro domina collitur musa latina mihi. Si igitur, dices, praeferter adultera nuptae, illa quidem bella est, sed magis ista placet. To paraphrase, French is my wife, Latin is my lover, and I'm having more fun with her right now. Anyway, the use of Latin gradually tapered off after the Renaissance, with the last major work in Latin being Newton's Principia in 1687. Wow. For reference, y'all, the Pilgrims had landed at Plymouth Rock nearly 70 years earlier. Meanwhile, in the East, in Greece and Turkey and such, Latin had been fighting a hilariously losing battle against Greek. The Roman Emperor Justinian of the 6th century CE tried to mandate that all legal text be written in Latin, but it was pretty hopeless because nobody could actually understand it, and eventually he was forced to move to Greek as the official language of the eastern half of the Roman Empire. I mean, it makes sense. Everyone had been using Greek as their official language since Alexander the Great, and, you know, the Romans, they just weren't as cool. As a final insult to Latin, in Byzantium, aka Constantinople, aka Istanbul, the Greek verb romaizo, literally Romize, or do the Roman thing, meant speak Greek. So just remember, guys, the same language can mean many different things to different people, and this is never more true than for the people who speak it. That was my video. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and also I'd love to hear in the comments if you can think of any other languages that have such a crazy range of opinions about them as Latin.